Welcome back. Today's story is about a woman who spent 10 years holding up a family that never once looked down to see who was carrying the weight. And the night they finally pushed her too far, she didn't cry. She picked up a hammer. My name is Reena. I am 31 years old. I own a construction company that has built more of this city than most people will ever know. On the Thursday afternoon that changed everything, I was standing inside a skeletal timber frame in the middle of a job site, sawdust in my hair and concrete dust on my boots, when my mother, Helen, called with that specific, careful tremor in her voice she uses right before she says something that is going to cost someone. She didn't ask about the 28-unit complex I was finishing 3 weeks ahead of schedule. She just told me not to come to Thanksgiving. It wasn't because of a fight. It wasn't because I had done anything wrong. It was because my younger brother Cole had asked her to uninvite me. Cole works at a bank headquarters downtown, wearing tailored suits and talking about portfolio optimization. He had recently started dating a woman he considered high society, an interior designer named Dana. Cole told my mother that having a sister who looked like she worked with her hands would embarrass him in front of Dana's family. He wanted to present a certain image, and I didn't fit it. My mother whispered into the phone, asking if I understood why it mattered so much to him. I stood there, looking at the orange sun going down behind the raw timber of my latest project, and I thought about the keys to a multi-million-dollar company sitting in my pocket. I told her I understood, and I hung up before she could offer me a pity brunch for the following weekend. What I didn't tell her was that in 5 days, Cole's carefully constructed world was going to come apart in front of everyone he was trying to impress. As I walked to my truck, my phone buzzed with a credit alert. Someone had just attempted to pull my business credit for a $500,000 bridge loan. I didn't need to check the IP address. I already knew. It confirmed what I had suspected since a dinner Cole hosted a month earlier. He had been unusually warm that evening, pouring glass after glass of expensive wine, talking about wanting to be a real family again. I had played along and let the alcohol appear to take hold until I drifted on his sofa. I wasn't as far gone as he thought. Through half-closed eyes, I watched him pick up my work tablet. I felt the dry press of my own thumb against the sensor as he used my hand to unlock it. I saw his phone camera flash as he photographed my social security card and my business incorporation papers. I could have stopped him right there. I didn't, because I had spent 31 years being the spare daughter, the one who worked double shifts at 19 to pay the mortgage on the family home, while Cole went to a prestigious university, on money I helped provide. My parents called him their golden boy, while I was just the girl who got her hands dirty. Every Sunday dinner was a sermon on Cole's latest promotion. My mother would glance at my calloused palms and ask if I had found a real career yet. They never looked at the name on the tax bills or the property deeds I had quietly moved into my own holding company to save them from foreclosure. Cole thought he was being clever. He thought he had found a way to fund his high society life by bleeding my business from behind. He didn't realize I had been waiting for him to try. I sat in my truck and made one phone call to a friend in bank compliance. I didn't ask her to do anything illegal. I gave her the transaction ID from the credit pull and told her the truth. My brother was attempting to secure a $500,000 loan using my corporate tax ID and a forged electronic signature. I asked her not to decline it, just flag the file for a manual audit and hold the funds in escrow for 48 hours. The internal dashboard Cole looked at would still show the loan as approved. He would think he had won. He would think $500,000 was coming his way. I also made a second call that evening, one Cole would never see coming, because over the past year I had been the anonymous client quietly purchasing Dana's entire interior design portfolio for my high-end builds. She thought she was a rising star on her own merit. I wanted her to be standing on top of something real. I wanted her reputation to mean something, because when Cole's world collapsed, I wanted her to have somewhere to land that had nothing to do with him. The trap was set, the concrete was pouring, and Cole was about to find out what happens when you try to steal from the person who built everything around you. Subscribe to our channel right now, because part 2 is where Thanksgiving becomes the night Cole's entire life gets repossessed, and I mean that literally. The Thanksgiving gathering was held at a modern coastal mansion overlooking the water. It was a masterpiece of glass and cantilevered concrete that my firm had completed 6 months earlier. Cole had been telling people for weeks that he had consulted on the financing for the estate. He was using it as a backdrop to establish himself in Dana's family's world. I arrived 1 hour late. I did not wear work boots. I wore a backless silk gown the color of midnight and heels that made me 6 feet of complete resolve. When I stepped into the foyer, the room shifted. My mother's glass nearly slipped from her hand. My father, Tom, just stared. Cole was across the room, leaning against a marble island holding a champagne flute. When he saw me, his face twisted and he crossed the room immediately, his voice dropping to a low hiss. He told me my mother had made it clear this was a professional circle and that I should leave before I embarrassed him. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a thick cream envelope. I didn't hand it to Cole, I handed it to my father. I told him Happy Thanksgiving. I told him it was an itemized invoice. Every mortgage payment, every property tax, and every emergency transfer I had covered for this family over the past 10 years. Since I wasn't family enough for dinner, I would like my investment returned with interest. Cole laughed. He said I was being delusional and called for security. Instead of security, the front doors opened. A flatbed tow truck sat idling in the circular driveway. The guests moved toward the windows. Cole's face went from red to a gray that had nothing healthy in it as the repo driver hooked a winch to his white Porsche and began pulling it toward the road. I leaned close to his ear and told him I hadn't stolen his car. I had called the dealership as the primary source of the down payment funds. Once I proved the money came from a flagged fraudulent loan under my company's name, they had been very happy to take back the keys. Cole said it was Thanksgiving. He said I was ruining everything over a car. I told him it wasn't over a car. It was over the $500,000 he had tried to take from my company the previous morning. The room went silent. Dana stepped back from him. Before Cole could find words, a tall, gray-haired man in a charcoal suit stepped forward from the guests. It was Gerald, the senior vice president of Cole's bank, who I had personally invited that evening. Gerald told Cole he had spent the afternoon reviewing the bridge loan application Cole had pushed through the system using a forged signature. The funds had been flagged and frozen 2 hours ago. The board had already been notified. Cole was terminated effective immediately, and 2 plainclothes officers were waiting in the foyer. Dana looked at the ring Cole had told her was a family heirloom. I leaned over and told her quietly that he had bought it with the $10,000 gift I had sent him the previous week. She took it off and threw it at his chest. My parents stood frozen as their golden boy was walked out in handcuffs. Cole was out on bail 3 days later. My mother had sold her engagement ring and my father had emptied his emergency savings to cover it. I knew he was out before they called me because my job site security system sent an alert to my phone at 2 in the morning. I watched the thermal footage on my laptop. A figure moving through the dark toward my $1 million excavator. Cole, carrying a red plastic container. He didn't know I had upgraded the site security after the uninvitation. As he splashed the contents across the machine's tracks, the AI thermal sensors triggered the automated suppression system. Instead of water, the nozzles released a pressurized cloud of indelible blue security dye and fire-retardant foam. Cole was soaked from head to toe in neon blue chemical that takes weeks to leave the skin. Police arrived 4 minutes later to find him glowing in the dark, smelling of gasoline and very poor decisions. This time, the judge saw the footage and denied bail. Cole was charged with criminal mischief and attempted arson. The next morning, I stood in my parents' living room. They were asking me to drop the charges, to be the bigger person. I handed them a legal notice instead. I told them I had purchased the debt on their house 6 months ago when the bank was preparing to auction it. I had intended to give it back to them at Christmas. After Cole's visit to my job site, I had changed my mind. They had 30 days to vacate. My mother sat on the sofa I had paid for, and my father could not look at me. I walked out and drove to the airport. I had a $5 million contract waiting in the mountains, and for the first time in 31 years, I was not carrying anyone's weight except my own. Cole was eventually sentenced to 6 years for bank fraud and identity theft, with a court order to repay over $300,000 in restitution. The professional circles he had spent his life trying to enter erased him within hours of the verdict. Dana's family issued a public statement. The bank removed his name from their website. 6 months into his sentence, he sent me a 10-page letter. I read the first paragraph and fed the rest into the shredder. My life is different now. My chosen family is people like Miguel, my lead carpenter, and Gerald, who became a mentor rather than just a witness. We eat dinner on Friday nights not to perform anything, but simply because we want to be there. There is no sawdust in the food and no lies at the table. I think about the Thursday afternoon when Helen called with that careful tremor in her voice and told me I wasn't welcome. I think about standing at that job site with keys to a multi-million-dollar company in my pocket and saying I understood. I understood more than she knew. I understood that the people who ask you to make yourself smaller so they can look bigger are not protecting you. They are using you, and the moment you stop being useful to them, they will hand that role to someone else without looking back. The question I keep returning to is not about Cole or what he deserved. The question is about the 10 years before any of this happened. The 10 years I spent holding up a family that responded to every act of support by asking me to be less visible. I don't know if there was a version of those 10 years where I could have walked away sooner. I don't know if leaving earlier would have cost me something I needed or saved me something I lost. What I know is that the foundation I built for myself is the only one that has never needed someone else's permission to stand. If this story stayed with you, then share it with someone today who needs to hear it. Subscribe to our channel because we tell a new story every single week, and every one of them is built for the people who have been carrying weight that was never theirs to carry alone.